For as long as I can remember, I have loved going to the movies. There is something so captivating and transformative about film. How a gifted screenwriter can turn incredible ideas into powerful words, summoning drama, humor, and conflict from the page like casting a spell. How an actor who knows their part better than they know themselves can breathe life into those words, creating a character who until that moment only existed on paper, and a performance with the potential to be remembered for generations to come. And how a director with vision and imagination can bind those rare elemental creative forces, fashioning them into a gateway able to draw you into whole other worlds, holding fast to your senses until the closing credits roll, and sometimes, if the job is well done, for far longer. My name is M. Glenn Gore. I'll be your host each week as we explore in depth the newest releases both in the theater and at home. You're watching In Like Glenn, and today we're discussing Phantom Thread. The following video review contains spoilers for the film Phantom Thread. Proceed with caution. When I discovered Paul Thomas Anderson was behind Phantom Thread, the new Daniel Day-Lewis feature widely reported to be his last, I should have been elated. His body of work boasts a number of undeniable award-season lightning rods, like the darkly comic 1997 adult film industry exploit Boogie Nights and the bewitching 2007 study of murderous oil man Daniel Plainview There Will Be Blood, yet I wasn't sold. That is, until I heard the following rumor. Phantom Thread is not about what you think. This movie about a fastidious and uppity 1950s London fashion designer who falls in love with a simple waitress is not what it appears. So I went, and here's what I learned. Daniel Day-Lewis plays Reynolds Woodcock, the aforementioned uppity designer at the center of our story. As a renowned and highly sought-after dressmaker to royalty, movie stars, socialites, and the like, he lives a life of privilege and esteem. Safely ensconced in a gorgeous estate, each brick and tile of which is tailored to the execution of his every whim, Reynolds reigns uncontested, for the moment. The film opens in earnest with a sequence dedicated to his daily routine. His grooming habits are meticulous, his personal and professional itinerary adhered to with military precision. Even the members of his sizable staff seem positioned strategically throughout the house, staged behind closed doors and around corners at just the right moment every morning, ready and waiting for the great master to make his appearance and dole out the day's designs. It is a well-oiled machine, one wound tight enough to snap if not for the considerable efforts of his sister Cyril, played with bloodless poise by Leslie Manville. Reynolds is an artist and cannot be burdened by the tedium of actual life, so Cyril is tasked with the running of the business and the house, clearing her brother's path of any and all distractions that might tear him even temporarily from his craft. He is the most recent example of a trope called the insufferable genius. You've seen this character before. He is brilliant, blessed with inspiration, and has no dearth of talents, but he is also impossible. He is thoughtless, rude, dismissive, condescending, and subject to petulance. He is a brat in men's loafers, a 50-year-old child. Any shade of failure to have his way will result in tantrums capable of, if properly timed, ruining an entire day's worth of work, and Day-Lewis plays the character masterfully. This is a far cry from his turn as the bloodthirsty Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York. He has neither the eloquence nor stature here he displayed in Lincoln, or the calculating avarice of his persona from There Will Be Blood. Here there is only a veneer of decorum, a fragile facade masking a dark illness. That illness hinted at early on takes the instantly suspect form of Reynolds' deep adoration for his late mother. She is always watching over him, he says, and if there's one thing film has taught us, it's that nothing is more important to a boy than his mother. Enter Alma Elson, the lovely yet unassuming waitress who catches Reynolds' eye as he dines at a quaint countryside restaurant. Played by Luxembourgian actress Vicky Krieps of the sly child assassin revenge thriller Hannah and the even more sharply rendered Farewell to Philip Seymour Hoffman, A Most Wanted Man, Alma becomes the latest in a long procession of Reynolds' muses and lovers, a fixture in his household where it's expected she will satisfy his passing fancy and be shuffled off on her way accordingly when the time comes. But this doesn't happen. Following their first date, Reynolds escorts Alma upstairs where he begins to take her measurements, a moment that is quite sensual. That is, until Sister Cyril barges in. For an instant, you almost expect Reynolds to show her out, but he doesn't. Cyril jots down the measurements as he calls them out to her, both interjecting backhanded compliments concerning Alma's body throughout, in effect transforming the once romantic moment into work. And if you aren't fearful of where this relationship is headed by now, you should be. Well, no, it's not quite that bad, but it does become evident fairly early on Alma may not fit as tidily into the fragile microcosm Reynolds has erected around himself. She lacks a grace and an etiquette all but required of the muses who've come before her, but for all the glitz and glamour, all the trappings her association with Reynolds affords her, Alma is still very much her own person, and not remotely content with fading into the silent, unseen background of his life. She speaks her mind when it pleases her, as she should, and it is playful banter at first, but when she dares to disagree with his choice of dress for her in one early scene, going so far as to denigrate the exquisite fabric it's made from, Reynolds cracks. He is being challenged, and that will not stand. For all its splendor, All the comings and goings of its distinguished guests, the house is almost a prison, a near institution staffed by seamstresses instead of orderlies, where Alma is to be seen and not heard. That is of course unacceptable to her, and therein lies the conflict. Food, or more specifically nourishment, factors heavily into many of the film's key altercations, almost serving as a warning to the audience. Alma is a day tripper in this world of high society, armed with none of the tools to navigate it, or so we believe. I have to commend the sound design team for the scene of their first shared breakfast. Like much of the movie, it is an exercise in tension and discomfort. Every piece of audio drops back until all we're left with is the din of her movements. Her utensils collide with her plate with the intensity of cars at a demolition derby. She butters her toast like a machete-wielding yardsman hacking weeds, each scrape of the knife striking like fire from a cannon. Worse, like a cannon that fires nails into a chalkboard while you bite down on a sheet of aluminum foil. Following this, their conflicting personalities begin to collide to greater and greater degrees. Their once blissful dynamic soon becomes about control, with each scene a skirmish in which they both vie for it, neither willing to concede. It's as if there's a bomb hidden in every room of the house. All you're doing is waiting for them to go off. That anxiety escapes the screen, hemorrhaging into the audience at every turn. The watershed moment comes when Alma, against the express wishes of Cyril, plans an intimate dinner at home for just the two of them. When Reynolds sees what she has done, his reaction is, well... And that's hardly an exaggeration. Tell them how the dinner went, Agent Smith.
It was a disaster.
It was. And this is the best part, the second act pivot that plunges the film into gothic waters. Reynolds is so displeased with the dinner, so wholly unable to appreciate any of the care she has taken, that Alma seeks vengeance for his slight and collects poisonous mushrooms to place in his next meal, which makes him deathly ill. Now bedridden with toxicity, Reynolds is haunted with waking visions of his departed mother. Yet what Alma has done is more than simple revenge. Here we see her take an active, even obsessive role in nursing him back to health. And if the scene in which the ailing Reynolds sees the specter of his mother only to have Alma literally erase her when she enters the room doesn't send a shiver down your spine, I question what will. A part of you up until this point has tried to convince yourself there's nothing edible in Reynolds' neurosis, but this instant puts that hope in the grave. This Hitchcockian detour into dark territory takes you completely unawares, particularly when you realize Reynolds' purported outer strength all this time has been a mask. He may be God in the Eden that is his house, at all times surrounded by those sworn to do his will, but what he wants most is to be doted on and taken care of, even if such a yearning results in physical agony. That desire to feel helpless, to be pampered and nursed, is stealthily hinted at even as far back as their first encounter in the restaurant. It makes you wonder what else he might be willing to endure to achieve this end. Their penultimate scene together, which I won't spoil here, you just have to watch it, reminds me of the ending of David Fincher's Gone Girl. When it finally happens, after everything everyone has suffered, all you can really do is sit there slack-jawed and say, you know what, they deserve each other. Phantom Thread truly is a remarkable feature. If this really is to be Day-Lewis's last, he has chosen a fine one to go out on, yet I feel confident we'll see him again in a few years' time. He is so impressive in this film, so committed to every facet of the role. In Reynolds Woodcock, he has created another character we won't soon forget. And not to be outdone, Vicky Krieps does a tremendous job keeping up with and even surpassing her opposite in a handful of exceptional scenes. I've not said nearly enough about Leslie Manville, whose performance as the ubiquitous Cyril has already captured her the London Film Critics Circle Award and any number of Best Supporting Actress nominations, all of which are well-deserved. Obviously, in a film about clothing, I can't sign off without applauding Mark Bridges' costume design. The dresses crafted for the movie are imaginative and intriguing, even if I'm not certain they're spectacular. Each one has a story beat in and of itself. One of the first we see is a high-collared, Snow White-inspired frock. It does double duty, at once giving us a glimpse of the innovative designs to come while winking to the audience. You're watching a fairy tale, but one more Grimm's than Disney, and the road ahead is dark. It is foreshadowing of a kind rarely seen and always enjoyable. If I have one complaint to level at the film, it's that, as amazing as Krieps' Alma is, for a woman who appears from out of nowhere, sweeps the incurable bachelor Woodcock off his feet, and turns his world on its ear in such titanic fashion that he actually learns to welcome and embrace it, the movie shares very little with us about her motivations. We're never as privy to her heart and mind as we are to Reynolds, and the lack of detail therein stunts the plausibility of their love affair. She professes her devotion often, and the movie would have us believe there is passion there, but it doesn't sell it. The conflicts I buy, the tension and jealousy, the constant battles for dominance within their relationship, I buy all of that, but the love they speak of so frequently seems noticeably absent. In the end, Phantom Thread is a modern marvel, a sublime, gothic tale of twisted love and obsession, and easily one of the most confident films I've seen in a while. Its maturity, pace, and tone harken back to another time, making it feel less like a period film set in the 1950s and more like a film made in that era, as elegant and finely crafted as one of Reynolds Woodcock's own dresses. And for that, I'm giving Phantom Thread 4.5 stars. That's it for this week's episode. As always, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for more updates. Until next time, you were just in like Glenn. And now it's time for a new segment we like to call the In Like Glenn Honorable Mention. I have to take a second to talk about my favorite scene, one that not only speaks to me, but I imagine to anyone who has ever been contracted to do anything artistic. When a soon-to-be wed countess comes calling, requesting Reynolds' services, he is revulsed. When one performs freelance work, we don't often have the luxury of choosing who hires us. The fear that whoever it is won't understand or appreciate the work we do is always a risk. Reynolds concedes, but the Countess isn't, in his opinion, worthy of the honor, and the very thought of her throwing herself around in one of his exorbitant dresses is more than he can abide. Forced to witness her wanton disrespect of his art firsthand, Reynolds and Alma embark on what is easily the funniest moment in the film, an impromptu repossession of the dress while the woman is still wearing it. This scene alone is worth the price of admission.